Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
At a time when the Delhi model of fighting coronavirus has been grabbing the limelight across the country, with several states, in fact, even wanting to emulate it, we are now seeing a surge of cases of COVID once again in the national capital. While some say it could be the second wave, there are experts who differ. But we want to break this down for our viewers. So joining me today is Dr. S.K. Sareen, who's of course a renowned gastroenterologist, Padma Bhushan Wardi as well, and he's been heading the Delhi panel, which was constituted by Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal as far as the fight against coronavirus is concerned. So thank you so much for joining us at the Print today. I want to begin straight by, to the most important question at this hour. Who can we attribute these surge in cases to? I mean, till 23rd of June, I think we saw about 4,000 cases a day, and then there was a decline. There were days where it was below 1,000, and we saw a massive improvement. But for the past 1 week, there's been a surge. We've seen over 1,500, and in the past 24 hours, we've actually seen the highest spike, over 1,600 cases. What do you make of it?
Thank you. I would like to say that firstly, the decisions related to policy or about COVID are being taken at the much higher level than my colleagues' committee. These are done by the central government, the lieutenant governor, the chief minister, and we advise as and when, if needed, on any technical issue. So it would be unfair that what I say is same as the government's viewpoint or government's approach. With that clarity, as an individual or as a clinician, as also have worked a little bit in corona, I would say that the virus is very smart. It is smarter than you and I think. And the way we thought that 2 and 2 will be 4 or 4 and 4 will be 8, it has not happened that way. It has outsmarted us. And the numbers which we thought all of us were happy that they have gone below 1,000 are not below 1,000. In fact, there is a slight increase. So I would say that this is a cause of concern. It doesn't mean that we panic, but we should consider it as a serious wake up and a serious push up for us to do more. And there can be 5, 6 important things in this. First, we have to find out where these positive cases are coming from. And if we can again get back to doing more strict contact tracing, and also to find out that are these the people who are living in a community. For example, somebody is working in an office and he comes back, and after coming back goes home, and there are 3 people staying there and they all get infected by one person who got the infection from outside. It doesn't mean the virus has spread into the community. It means we are infecting people unknowingly. And that is evident also when you see the number of people who are antibody positive. Like Delhi has about 29-30% antibody positive in the last survey, Sero survey. And 1 month before it was 22%. So about 6 to 8% more people got the antibodies in this. So this also says that while the positivity in the RT-PCR was only 0.6% of Delhi population, only 1,60,000, but 1/3 of Delhi, that means 60 lakh were positive for antibodies. So if that is true, there is a slow spread, latent, unknowing spread of the virus. And who are these people? All of us have to be very, very careful. So in that scenario, I would say any rise of number of patients is alarming. We should be careful. If the numbers go above 2,000 a day, I think it will certainly need to be worrisome. The second reason for rise in numbers could be maybe the increased testing. Third, it is possible that we are using a rapid antigen test. And that has a little less sensitivity, specificity than the RT-PCR. So there could be 5-10% of the people who may be positive and are not picked up. And these could be slowly spreading the virus. Fourthly, Delhi has lost a little bit of self-discipline. We need to have a bottom up approach. हम लोग हमेशा कहते हैं कि सरकार जो है वो समाज के लिए काम करे. दिस इज़ द टाइम कि समाज को सरकार के लिए काम करना. Why do you think everything the government can do? Why not a common person? And this is a bottom up approach. We have to understand that everybody is infected. Treat everybody as infected. And also you are infected. So you use universal precautions all the time. People in Delhi, especially when I go out and see in the evenings, they are walking on the streets without a mask or eating together. Of course, this is normal thing, but not nowadays. And maybe for another year, we have to understand restraint is the golden thing, and we have to do that. So the fourth point is we have to have social vaccine. We have to have social discipline much above anything. And fifth, it is possible that the virus has mutated. We don't have large base studies in Delhi. Which variant? It could be a new variant of the virus which has come from somewhere else. And of course, there is another reason that some people who are there who have the infection are continuing, because we have only been doing one negative test and we discharge the patient. It is possible that the one negative test was done by rapid antigen, but the guy was continuing to have positive virus, and this virus is still there with him when he goes to the house or in the community. So these are the causes that virus is spreading, and Delhi has to gear up.
That was indeed a very well explained and insightful response. So my subsequent questions are actually part of what you've already answered. I want to begin with the first part that you mentioned. Is it because it was always expected that there will be a spurt in cases after the reopening? The lockdown could have continued forever. So what more do you think could be done to sort of ensure, like, as you mentioned, we see a lot of people not wearing their masks. The police is trying to issue challans, but that kind of discipline is not seen in Delhi. So do you think that is also contributing to a huge extent as far as that is concerned?
Yes, I think it is a huge extent. But let me ask you a question. If you find somebody who is not wearing a mask, what will you do?
To be honest, I'm not saying this on camera, but I've actually walked up to people because I go for a jog in a park right opposite my house. So I actually tend to do that sometimes, but it's not liked.
So if you find somebody who is without a mask, let it be clear that you will stop that person, politely request that person, please put on the mask. You are an antisocial element. Who is an antisocial today? One who is not behaving is an antisocial element. Now I'll take it to the Spanish flu days, 1918. If you see those pictures of 1918, everyone in Massachusetts, Boston area, whether it was a train conductor, it was somebody who is a passenger, or it was a ticket collector, everyone was wearing a mask. And there was gauze pieces, white surgical gauze pieces. They were used for a mask, but people were wearing it. Not one was without a mask. Same was true for Japanese. So I would say we need to have that clarity, whether it is, you have to police yourself, your society, your mohalla, your colony. So I think that is the only way you can achieve it.
The next question that I have for you, sir, is everyone's been talking about the discrepancy, or rather the gap, between the level of rapid antigen tests and RT-PCR. That's been a talking point, not just in Delhi, but across the country. And if we look at the latest health bulletins in Delhi, for the longest time I've been following it daily, we see that the rapid antigen tests are more than double the RT-PCR tests. Correct me if I'm wrong, could that also be contributing to the false negatives, and perhaps that's why we see in this part?
It is possible, because rapid antigen tests, the kits which we are using, they are only picking up cases when it is virus is 10 raised to power 4 or 5, means 10,000 copies or 100,000 copies are there. Even 1 lakh copies or 10,000 copies of the virus are there, then the rapid antigen test will be positive. While RT-PCR will pick up 100 copies of the virus. So the level of sensitivity is markedly lower in the rapid antigen test. So you are right, we will be missing cases. So, two ways we can overcome it. We can't do rapid antigen, we can't do RT-PCR for everybody, but if we can, that is the best way. However, if there is even the slightest suspicion, like there is one positive person, all the contacts and of course all mildly symptomatic also must have an RT-PCR. Also, people who are above the age of 50, people who have comorbidities, those who are pregnant or those who are likely to go to a hospital for something because they can take the infection to the hospital. So it is there that all such patients should have an RT-PCR test done.
In fact, as you must have seen, the Chief Minister on Wednesday announced that because there's been a spurt in cases, they're going to double the level of testing in Delhi. From 20K per day, they actually plan to go to 40,000 per day. Now, as an expert, if you could please tell me, is this feasible within a week? There were some labs that my colleague and I were speaking to earlier today, and they said they're already running full capacity. So do you think this is going to be feasible as an expert, because announcements aside?
Well, it is feasible because Delhi has many such centers like NCDC, ILBS and others who have large capacity. We can do large number of tests, both RT-PCR as well as rapid antigen. Rapid antigen is easy, you just need to increase the number of manpower and you can do it. But even RT-PCR, Delhi was doing close to 10,000 RT-PCRs a day and it can be escalated. So I think once a decision has been taken at that level, it certainly can be done.
And as the chief of the panel, do you think that it might be important or help to step in and tell them to reduce the gap between the antigen and the RT-PCR, given if there is a rise in testing, but if again we see that the massive chunk of tests is antigen tests or NAT, TrueNAT or this thing, the same problem might aggravate?
Well, it is always better to do RT-PCR, but it also has its own limitations. I think sometimes you do not get the correct sample. So when you are doing, I would like that initially we should do 1,000 or 2,000 samples where both these tests are done. Like you are doing RT-PCR as well as the rapid antigen. So I think this repeated sampling should be done to compare the two, and the gaps in a given population, in a given group of people who are collecting samples must be checked. Say team A, team B, team C, there are 30 teams who are running. So in one team the samples are not so well collected, while in other team the samples are well collected. So we must know in the team A how many are antigen positive or how many are PCR positive, and if the discrepancy is a lot, then I think we should be careful on that.
Talking of the testing numbers as well, we've also been seeing a debate about the lack of data transparency when it comes to health bulletins across the country. Delhi particularly had, I've been reporting from day one, had about a 4-page long bulletin. Now we see 3/4 of a page. We don't have accurate details. As an expert, don't you think that even when you're looking at future policy making or analyzing what I'll come to next, cases of reinfection, it's important to share data in a very transparent manner with the public out there? Or should the facade of avoiding panic remain, as is the common defense?
See, well, the data is obviously there, much more data than what you see, and that's how the group had been working. And there is a coordinated effort to never to conceal any data, but to see that what is useful for the people. And what people want to know, number of deaths, number of recoveries. So people know people are recovering, number of available beds, and number who are in the COVID care setup kind of thing. I think that is a reasonable number, 4 or 5 variables, because this has been a long process. I don't think there is any doubt in the transparency in the Delhi. I know the data fairly well collected. It is possible that sometimes data is delayed by a few hours because samples come very late in the night. You have been collecting samples, so one day's samples can go later. Maximum delay is 24 or rarely 48 hours. So I think data may be a little delayed, if at all, but not wrong data. That I do not ever think about from Delhi.
Another thing that I'm very curious to ask you, as someone who's been tracking the number of deaths very closely in parts of the country, the first story that I did was from Delhi, where we felt that the number of deaths was being underreported. Of course, we followed that up. There was a backlog, and the chief minister admitted that on camera during a press conference. But we followed that up just last month, and we still noticed a discrepancy when we gather data not just from crematoriums, but from MCD, the confirmed number of cases from hospital files, which were then presented to the committee. What do you have to say about that?
Well, this is true everywhere. You take the US, you take UK, you take London, you take Barcelona, Spain, anywhere. This has remained the same because people have not learned how to connect the deaths which have not been confirmed by COVID at a given time. Somebody has come, he has passed away in 24 hours or even less time. You don't have a corona positive test. What will you do? I mean, you have to say possible. So, and also in many patients, the virus takes longer time to be, visible, but by that time lung lesions. So even in the definitions, if you have an increase in the lung, lesions, then you say that it is corona there just by CT, even without a blood test or without a nasal swab. So I think wrong reporting is not a correct word. Yes, taking time to correctly report sometimes is a problem. It is all over the world because this is not a blood test. This is a nasal swab. So, but at least those which are reported are correct. But anywhere in the country, this is same. Whether Maharashtra, Bombay, every year.
Also, which was admitted. And also, so it's true when we say that any death recorded during this time period should be categorized as a COVID death, because I've heard very contrasting feedback from experts. So I'm curious to understand that as well, leaving Delhi aside.
No, I don't think any death can be. I think, no. I think the number of deaths which are assigned to by upper respiratory or lower respiratory infections, I think only those. Like somebody has a cardiac death, you can't just say it is because of corona unless you have. So I think respiratory infections or respiratory infection related deaths, they can be collectively called for corona, but not otherwise.
So I also want to move to plasma therapy. As we all know, ILBS is a key plasma bank center. In fact, the first in the country. Arvind Kejriwal had come here and inaugurated himself. How has the response been? Again, a very controversial topic. ILBS was in news saying that is it too soon to jump the gun? It's experimental technique. But now that it's been sufficient amount of time has passed, how has the response been? We've seen a lot of people, some even no names, actually come and donate their plasma.
Well, we were part of a collective thinking group where we thought since there is nothing else available, so we applied for the first clinical trial and we got some approvals in April for a trial which was run by ILBS in association with the Maulana Azad and Lok Nayak Hospital. We did 29 patients and it was an initial learning experience. Development of plasma bank was something because at that time people were expecting that plasma would be a panacea and they were buying it. They were trying to spend any amount of money, especially in the private setup. So people were running from pillar to post to get it, and there was no mechanism. So what the government of Delhi did, and we pursued it, that can the government of India and the drug controller consider that plasma therapy is an experimental therapy, even if that is given, like all drugs, take remdesivir for that matter, or you take steroids or any other therapy, they are all experimental therapies because there is no specific proven therapy. So since other treatments were given experimental therapy notice and were allowed to be given on doctor's recommendation, we said let plasma therapy be considered, and that is where the first application was considered by the drug controller on July 1. And they said, the government of India said, and in their guidelines they put it as plasma therapy as an experimental therapy, and that allowed and opened the way for setting up of a bank, and the government and the Chief Minister was quick enough to guide and set up the plasma bank, which started on 2nd of July. It has been a huge experience, learning for us, in a manner that people come and they want to donate as if they are very happy donating. So these are voluntary donors, those who have recovered themselves, found a new way of living, and the others are replacement donors. So replacement donors are those who are doing it for somebody, and they are also for gratis, pro bono. But the feeling is that you just don't know whom I am giving to, and then you still go and give it. That's a very, very good. So Delhi, and we have got close to, I think we have issued close to about 1,000 plus, maybe 1,300 people who have been issued plasma. We still have a bank which has about 800 or so plasma units. Every day we have about 20 to 30 people who come and donate. And no plasma bank, no blood bank generally, a plasma bank would be open till 6. After 6 in the evening, we are very happy that we are running it till about 10 or 11 in the night, and we have 24/7 antigen testing. So we are very happy, and our team, which is led by Professor Meenu Bajpayee, she is very happy and the team is very happy. We have also learned that people who get the plasma early enough, let's say somebody is infected and he gets the plasma as a moderate disease and has got it within 72 hours, they respond much better. If somebody has a very advanced disease, severe or critical COVID, and then gets this when organs have already failed, then maybe plasma therapy is not. So plasma therapy has antibodies, and especially I would like to say there are 3 types of antibodies. One is an acute antibody, which is an IgM. Somebody gets corona virus, within 5 days you get the first antibody, which is IgM. Then about 4 or 5 days later you get IgG antibody, which is a general antibody. But you have another antibody of the type of IgG, which is called as a neutralizing antibody. And this neutralizing antibody, and very few in the country, probably very few plasma banks in the country do it. We do that neutralizing antibody. So if you have that plasma, which has high levels of neutralizing antibody, this will go, when you give this plasma to the patient, it will bind to the virus and hopefully inactivate or neutralize the virus. So that is why the name neutralizing antibody. So if the plasma is given during the early period, there is a strong possibility that the viral loads will come down.
Out of the 1,300 who've been administered plasma, could I request you to share an approximate where we can say it has helped in recovery?
No, we are only a bank. How the people use the money?
Okay.
Bank
the reason
gives the money. No, nobody gives, although it was part of our plan. Yes. But people take it to all hospitals in Delhi. But we do not know whether they are actually benefiting or not. But yes, I don't think there are any complications, major complications, but there can be. We need to have more data. But as you know, there is a 70,000 patient data from US by the Mayo Clinic, based on which the FDA has given emergency. This emergency authorization, which FDA has given 2 days ago, was given to us by DCGI, and thankfully the DCGI was very kind, Dr. Somani. So when we got this approval by DCGI, then only the plasma bank was set, and after this many plasma banks in the country have
I've actually seen a lot of them follow the model, including Assam. My last question, we've also been seeing cases of reinfection, quote unquote, if I may call them so. Although again, as you mentioned, there are people who think that we need more evidence. Delhi saw one a month ago, which was about a Delhi cop. Just this morning, I've been told that a doctor from LNJP has contracted the infection for the second time. Telangana reported 2 more cases. Ahmedabad has seen. And of course, we already know what's happened in Hong Kong. So what is your analysis on that front?
I think it's a serious matter. Reinfection is certainly a serious matter. And the causes can be following. First, the person who got the infection for the first time never made adequate level of antibodies against the virus. So he has a system where immunity is lacking. We need to test it. Secondly, he may have got another strain of the virus. So this is like there are 7 major strains. So this strain versus that strain. And third is we have little knowledge how long the antibodies stay. Suppose the antibodies are present and they can go down by 3 months or so, and there is no memory in the body of the previous antibodies, then you can get reinfected. So I think it's a cause of concern. So once you have antibodies, that doesn't mean you have a passport. As some people say, immunity passport. You don't have a passport for life. I think the cautions should be there. You know, many people are using those who have the recovered from COVID as a ticket. That's probably not so correct. So I think reinfection is a cause of worry.
That's an important message. And I'm going to be greedy and fit in one more question. You're also a teacher, and we know that everyone's debating about NEET and the JEE exams. In your view, do you think the hoopla around it is worth it? Should people just give the exams and get away with it? These are also exams where you can drop a year. What's your view as an expert in the industry?
Well, I would say, let's say there were some interviews for the post of a police officer or a policeman, or there was, so would they, and there would be 10,000 applications. Don't you think that interview or that exam would have been not taken? Everybody would have gone. 10,000 policemen, people, young people would have gone to give the exam so they get a job. Here you are not getting a job. Say there are elections. You are going to run elections in maybe 5-6 states. The elections likely to go on. I think everybody should just wear a good mask, an N95 mask. There is very little fear in that. And exams, I think there would be 95% of the people would be happy if they give an exam. Of course, all precautions taken. If they give an exam, they get selected despite corona, they will say, even during corona, even during that pandemic, I gave an exam and I got selected. I think there is a need for us to think in different ways. Of course, there are challenges, but these challenges will always come in a society, in a country which is so large. So my personal opinion, exams should be done. As a teacher, and I was also involved with the Medical Council of India 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I think at least for medical side, the NEET, 1 year of life of a doctor not becoming a doctor is a waste for the country. I mean, like you are enrolling 75,000 new doctors. You are making 35,000 new people entering into a specialty. You need doctors and you are delaying for 1 year, for 6 months, for what? So therefore, I think with all precautions, at least for NEET, I can say we should not delay. We should get these guys in with all precautions. And then I think they will prove the world wrong. India will say, and Indians will say, we can.
That was indeed a very inspiring message, especially for our younger viewers out there, and for more such insightful piece of information in terms of how India is fighting coronavirus. Do track us on our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter with Manisha Mondal. This is Anisha Bredi reporting for The Print.